Miller, the club president. Our opening song today, God Bless America and the Pledge of Allegiance, will be led by Leanne Wilson. Our invocation will be offered by past District Governor Dick Brown, and our visitors and visiting Rotarians will be introduced by Kevin Abnell. Please take a moment to silence your electronic devices.
Rotarians and guests, please join me in God Bless America. God bless America.
America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Eternal God, bless all schools, colleges, universities, and all educators, especially our featured speaker today. Collectively, they and we have a responsibility to preserve and share the evolving history of our time. In doing so, may they and we always embrace Rotary's four-way test in those communications. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? As Rotarians, may we do our part to support the educators of our children, youth, and adults. Bless today's food that nourishes our bodies and the hands that have harvested and prepared it. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen.
I'm pleased to have the honor to welcome our guests today. When I call your name, if you could please remain standing until President Glenn has welcomed you. First, we had two visiting Rotarians. First, we have from the Mechanicsburg North Club, we have the District Governor Juliet Altenberg. From the Passport Club, we have Karen Snyder. And our guests today, we have Vicki Stewart, guest of Ron Bunce. Madison Summers, guest of both past President Jackie and past President Mike Summers. We have Cameron Goodling, guest of Tom McCracken. Jessica Hall, also guest of Tom McCracken. Joni Nash, guest of our speaker. Gail Shadrick, guest of past President Ann Drunk. Mainika Ojo, past President Ann Drunk. And Tina Charles, guest of Ashley Etzweiler. Jamil Alexander, guest of Jules Tolbert, sorry. Cora Taylor, guest of Andy Rawitz. May Moore, guest of Anthony Moore. And finally, Jack Dyson, guest of Cal Weary.
Friends, we are grateful and delighted to have you with us today. And of course, it is always a special joy to welcome our district governor in our midst, who will greet us shortly. I know you will enjoy our program as well as the lively fellowship of diverse members who surround you today. I hope you will return again as a visitor and perhaps even consider joining our ranks. Rotarians, please help me welcome our visitors and our visiting Rotarian. Just two things to share in the announcements department today. A reminder, first off, that the Rotary Club of York Board of Directors meets tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. via Zoom.
And secondly, my personal gratitude to those of you who were able to come out last Thursday to enjoy a cocktail and fellowship at Aviano's, where I was crafting for a cause, if you will, on behalf of our charitable grants fund here at the club. We raised just over $400 that evening, and we had a lot of fun together. Many thanks to our fellowship chair, Rob Bowen, for putting that together. And now we have some great Paul Harris Fellows and Society members to acknowledge today. And it is again my special privilege to have our District Governor, Julia Altenberg, here to bring greetings and to assist Bill Hartman, our Rotary International Foundation Chair, in presenting the awards.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here again. I first visited during the summer, and to be returning to present and acknowledge the generosity of several of your club members and collectively your club as a whole is really a true honor. I know there's many guests here today, so just a little bit of education about Rotary. Rotary International has 1.4 million members. And the Rotary Foundation is a separate and distinct arm from Rotary International, but it really provides the fuel for all the great work that Rotary International does, not just through the organization and the top leadership, but really through club members and clubs such as yourselves that do such great work locally and internationally. I'd like to give you a few statistics about how generous your club as a whole has been since it was chartered. So I ran a few reports from the My Rotary website this morning, and all-time giving of the Rotary Club of York, $1.9 million. So please give yourself a round of applause. That's pretty amazing. Right now, the Rotary Club of York has 279 members, and I want to congratulate you on that. It's been a tough time the last several years with members coming and going, and you now have some net growth this year, so thank you for your efforts in that area. Out of the 279 members, you have 159 that are Paul Harris Fellows, meaning they've given $1,000 at a minimum to the Rotary Foundation. So that is quite an accomplishment. We are going to be recognizing additional Paul Harris Society members and Paul Harris Fellows today. So your club has 12 Paul Harris Society members, meaning they have vowed to give $1,000 annually to the Rotary Foundation. Very, very generous. There are ways to contribute to the Rotary Foundation, even when you're no longer with us, when you've passed on. There are levels of giving, such as becoming a Bequest Society member or a benefactor. And you have 5 of those members who have put the Rotary Foundation in their will, another accomplishment. And when you look at the average giving per capita of each member of this club, you are at $195 per member per year, which is quite laudatory. So give yourself a round of applause for that. And now I am going to be calling out some of our Paul Harris Society awardees. I just need to find my list here. Here we go. Okay, so as I call out the names, please come forward. You'll receive a certificate, and when you become a Paul Harris Society member, you also get a special flag that you can attach to your pin. So, past District Governor Ben Hoover, please come forward. You can remain standing at the front as you receive your award. The next award goes to past President John Kleindens. Next is Karen McCormick. Next is Jacob Miller, who's not president, but his daughter Alyssa will be accepting on his behalf. Next is past President Jackie Summers. And next is past President Mike Summers. Thank you very much. Will there be photos at the very end? Then should we go? Okay, so very good. So another round of applause for our group of Paul Harris. And now I'm going to have your district foundation chair, Bill Hartman, come forward, who will be making further announcements on Paul Harris Fellows. Thank you.
Thank you, District Governor Juliet, and good afternoon, everyone. I really appreciate your being here, Juliet. I really appreciate your being here, and I really appreciate Juliet's continued inspiring promotion of the Rotary Foundation. She did a fabulous job 2 years ago when she chaired the Rotary Foundation dinner, and she made a comment that really resonated with me, and I've used it with you many times, and I think about it all the time, when she said that the Rotary Foundation is the crown jewel of Rotary. And I think that's absolutely true. So thank you for sharing that with us. I want to personally thank and congratulate our new Paul Harris Society members. I think it's a fabulous commitment. It brings our total number of Paul Harris Society members to 12, as Julia says, and that's, first of all, that's the highest in our district, and it's a very high percentage of membership when you compare, if you compare that to the number of Paul Harris Society members that other districts have been able to have. This whole Paul Harris Society thing really helps fuel the foundation and is very important. So I have a suggestion, District Governor Juliet, for the upcoming foundation dinner. We have a lot of categories of winners there, and I think it would be great if we added a category for the club that generated the most new Paul Harris Society members. Okay, I think that would be fair. It would be great. So today we're going to, in addition to honoring new Paul Harris Society members, we're going to be honoring people who have elevated to a higher level of Paul Harris fellowship. And some of those, of course, will be coming up here a second time, because some of these folks are new members of the Paul Harris Society as well. So we have quite a few. The first is Bradley Smith. Bradley, are you here? Wonderful, yes, please come up. And what's significant about this, it's always neat to see someone achieve the milestone of their first Paul Harris Fellow. So Bradley, this is your first. Congratulations for doing that. Next is Anthony Pantano. Is Anthony here? Great, thank you for coming. Anthony has achieved Paul Harris Fellow +1. Which is really great. Bryan Polk, Paul Harris Fellow +1. Congratulations. George Hummel has achieved Paul Harris +2. Karen McCormick has achieved Paul Harris +2. Past President John Kleindinst has achieved Paul Harris Fellow +3. Bill Shipley is here via Zoom. He was concerned that today's 54-degree temperature in York wouldn't be adequate, so he would prefer to Zoom in from the Florida Keys. So can you pull up Bill? He's not. Well, Bill, can you hear me? I hope you can hear me. I wanted to congratulate you on achieving your Paul Harris +3. Jacob Miller Paul Harris +5, his daughter Alyssa, again, will accept the award for him. John Olkowski has also achieved Paul Harris +5. He was not sure whether he could make it, so I don't see him, so I assume he's not here. Past President Jackie Summers, Paul Harris +5. Past President Mike Summers, Paul Harris +6. And you can see that there's a little discrepancy there, and it appears that we might have some competition going on within the Summers household. And that's what capitalism is all about. So we hope that that'll inspire more Paul Harris giving. Don Dellinger won't be here today, but he has achieved Paul Harris Fellow +7, which is very significant. And past District Governor Dr. Van Hoover has achieved Paul Harris Fellow +8, which is quite an accomplishment. And at the table today, Dr. Hoover made the comment that an investment in the Paul Harris Society is the best return on investment you could ever possibly make, because the Paul Harris Fellowship started in 1948, a year after the death of Paul Harris, the founder of Rotary, and it started at $1,000, and the price has never been increased. So it's the equivalent of $12,600 today. So that's how good an investment you all are making. We have some honorees today, where Paul Harris Fellows are using their recognition points to honor deserving people. And first of all, would like to have Tom McCracken come up and join two awardees that he is sponsoring, Cameron Goodling and Jessica Hall. Come on up, folks, if you will, please. And lastly, the Summers family will have a third Paul Harris Fellow, as Jackie and Mike are honoring their daughter Madison. Madison, would you come up, please? Thank all of you for your generosity. Please give them a round of applause.
Yes, please feel free to return to your seats while I catch my breath from having gone up and down those stairs more times in one meeting than I think I ever have before. You know, we are all privileged to be a part of what we know is a great club, but we are all part equally of an equally important organization, international organization, whose reach in doing good in the world is nearly endless. Our participation in Rotary International through these financial commitments links us to our brothers and sisters in Rotary around the world and makes possible, as District Governor Juliet has said, makes possible everything that Rotary International does. So one more round of applause for these extraordinarily generous members. And now, without further ado, it is our fellow Rotarian and friend Jody Keller who will introduce our speaker for the day. Jody.
Okay, just 1 minute. Real quick, okay. Does anyone know why Jalen Hurts will not be able to call his mom after the Super Bowl? No reception. I'm a Steelers fan. Can't help myself. Okay. However, I'm here for a much more important reason. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker today, Bryan Wade, who's the founder and CEO of Keystone Oral Histories. A minister, award-winning television producer on race and racism, radio broadcaster, K-8 educator, 2-branch military veteran, and award-winning documentary producer. Bryan has had an eclectic and expansive professional career. In November of 2017, he created and was executive producer of the first oral history, or maybe not the first, your oral history documentary entitled Keystones, the African-American Veterans Experience. The first documentary in the Keystone series chronicled the lives of African-American servicemen and women who served in the military from World War II to Vietnam. In addition, Bryan created school curriculum in conjunction with this documentary, which he believes is the first of its kind in the country to teach African-American oral history within U.S. school systems. His media background includes the television series Worlds Apart, for which he served as the executive producer and host from '97 to 2008. The purpose of Worlds Apart was to explore the legacy of racial, social constructs that have exacerbated ethnic discord in and continues to fuel America. He conducted nationwide college tours to many colleges and universities across the U.S., including Stanford, Drexel University, and Morehouse College School of Medicine. Bryan served 4 years in the U.S. Navy, 2 years in the Army National Guard. He received his bachelor's degree in elementary ed from York College, and he is the father of 3 and grandfather of 8. Please welcome Bryan Wade.
Thank you so much, President Miller. Ladies and gentlemen, to my beautiful fiance, Joan Nash. It's my privilege to be here to speak before so many of you that I know. Thank you for this opportunity. I'll be very brief and concise and to the point, and then we can get to the questions. That's my favorite part. I like the interaction and the dialogue. Again, my name is Bryan Wade, and what we're going to do now is take a look at the website, and we'll do some navigating through the website. So let me just open up with the musical piece, please. Let's go to the About section in the, scroll back up. Yes. Okay, let's go to, just show the board of directors. Yes. Scroll down. Just wanted to take you through a brief journey through our website. Stop there. We have our board of directors. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization that was established in 2017. And one of the members of our board is from York, Pennsylvania. Matter of fact, we served in the military together. Gentleman right here, Pierre Ritter, longstanding New York County native. Served in the military together in the Navy, the Army National Guard. He attained the rank of lieutenant colonel, but he also was the chief of police in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where he was on a dual track, serving in the military and also, and I worked with him in the police bureau in Harrisburg also. So this is just one, some of our board of directors. Let's go back to the About section. Let's go to collaborations. Keystone is looking to expand its collaborations. I know when we did this last documentary in York County, it highlighted the experience of African Americans that served in the Civil War beyond Vietnam. And we highlighted several individuals in that documentary, and we'll get a chance to look at some of those individuals. But before I go on, I wanted to say and thank York County for their generous contributions towards Keystones. I can clearly say probably in the 5 years, I would say anywhere between 50 to 75% of the funding that we've been able to raise came out of York County. So a lot of the success that you're seeing in growth of Keystones is directly related to York County. So when they talk about York County not being very friendly, Well, I think you have to be a friend to make friends. So I wanted to thank you and give yourself an applause. Okay, I know we've collaborated with York College of Pennsylvania and also with Lincoln Charter School and several other schools. And later on in the presentation, you'll see a real world application of how they're utilizing the curriculum. So let's go to the next slide. Yes, let's go to the video gallery. Scroll down. These are just some of the videos. Go back, please. Some of the videos. I know Governor Wolf has been a longstanding supporter of just work that I've done in the past, like Worlds Apart, and then he did the video for the first documentary. We're not going to play that, but if you go to the website, which is www.keystonesoralhistories.com, you can see all this for yourself. I'm just taking you through briefly. You can actually watch the documentary dealing with York County online, and want to make you aware that Worlds Apart, not Worlds Apart, that's back in 2008. Keystone's Oral Histories is now not only seen in this region, but we've been picked up by several PBS member stations around the United States, California, North Carolina, Chicago, Illinois, Delaware, Philadelphia, and also in the central Pennsylvania region. So we're thankful for that kind of exposure. I think people see some relevance, on a broader scale. So it was fortunate that PBS has this with the Independent Producers Network, and they'll put your catalog or your documentary in a system. Another PBS member station go through, and if they like it, they'll air it on their member station. So we're thankful for the growth. Let's go back to the top again for the category, the second category. Let's look at the video gallery. No, I'm sorry, expose, oral histories, that's what I apologize. Yes. Scroll down a little bit. These are some of the oral histories of individuals. For instance, if you click in the middle one, please, at the top, yes. Keystone was really inspired by a gentleman that grew up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and his name was Samuel L. McDonald. And if anybody's seen the movie We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson, this gentleman actually served in the first air cav in 1965. That was the first major battle in Vietnam in 1965. He actually lost his life. So when I was watching the movie We Were Soldiers, scroll down to the bottom, and it says Samuel L. McDonald, Harrisburg. So I started researching. And he was really the catalyst for why he even created Keystone, because as a former educator, I always say lifetime educator or lifetime learner. I said something needs to be done to create more awareness around the contributions of African-American and the other ethnic minority groups. And so I started doing my research, and next thing I know, I'm putting together raising funds to do that. But he was really the inspiration, and he was awarded several medals for his service in Vietnam. So thank you. You can take that off, please. So when you go to the website, you scroll down some more, you'll see a cadre of different individuals. Scroll down some more, please. Some individuals that have been a part. Here's a York County, and let's go to that final row. And this, the third, fourth, no, down. One more. Yes. I know you know, no, scroll over, please, with the arrow. We'll go to Bonnie Grimes. You're right in that last row.
Bottom row, okay.
Yeah, there you go. I know you're open that up. Bonnie Grimes was in our document. He served during World War II, and as most of you know, if not all of you, he has definitely an indelible imprint in terms of this public service here in York County. So if you scroll down, you can actually see some of his historical information. So we're constantly, we are able to expand that kind of history, on our website about these individuals. He's also in the documentary, so you can see all of that there. So thank you. You can X out of that, please. Okay, let's go back up to the top again. And to that category, second category. Okay. Well, I don't want to spend too much time there. So let's go to the video gallery, please. And let's go to the timeline of 7 minutes, 30 seconds. Now, one of the things that we're doing very active, having a background in media, is that probably a year and a half ago, I partnered with PCN to do a statewide broadcast. We've been able to get the curriculum into various schools here in New York City. And one of the schools was Lincoln Charter School. So people asked me, what's been the practical application in terms of how schools are using this? So what I wanted to do was play a clip of the practical application of how they're utilizing that curriculum in terms of their own histories here. So if you would play that to the end.
We have a service project that I put together. Again, I teach the career component. So when we're doing a little bit into the history part, the career component was, we had to identify. Like, I was to go to where you know, very started. Turn out, choice, we have the ones who did not make it. Make it survey, and then we were at a short time. And it's and that time for that military. So as I presented, there was some pictures of that, it's and the sequence that they complete. Each bullet had a water period. There was a person that I had a picture. It was the history, it was the education, it was a going into the military. Because some people at that time didn't need to have graduated from high school. So we had to get into that. We people have a friend with who were supposed to, you know, anybody who's in a community with the same last name. It's just a power project. And I have those upstairs. And I took so much pride into this project, but I couldn't really press the need to be sure and still have a third ones. The third ones have many attributes curriculum from Keystone. So that didn't turn me into the curriculum. I was able to put pieces from the curriculum and never into what I'm teaching as human services. Future leaders. Technology is a good thing. It's something when you can take a part of history and bring it into the future. So this was a restoring opportunity for them because I was able to do some research on their iPads and not just have to sit down and go back into this. This was necessary for this project as well. This was an opportunity where some of our young people were able to interview some of the family. And this is the story of Miss Megan's brother, as well as his knowledge and others. And it was really witness really learn about it in the audience. I want to share some of their other experiences that we have.
She did William Smallwood.
What I found most interesting was learning about his childhood and what he did as a child. Yes, I constantly smaller consumers. What I found hard also searching for what's asking questions and like saying the people. Learning about this night and education. I love reading about the Bryan concerns and plans for around the lives. I think that it was like very awesome experience learning about smaller life. He served in the military. He's from Berkeley. He's a midwife. He being treated in battle because he wasn't in a good position, so he refused to fight. And his commanding officer didn't want to. So his part of our research, we were probably through his childhood, because I couldn't find much confusion. My biggest takeaway was she's learning about his history and his goal of being in the military.
Opportunities to actually sit down and talk about right now we have a rotation with my 6th grade students and now starting these classes of the 5th graders. Honestly, They're just not like, in business in Africa, but they're still coming back. And then it's me. How are you doing this month? And do we get an opportunity to get put into a curriculum? I want to reflect it that that's soon, because that means that we're engaged. We need this now.
So again, that's kind of the real world application where they don't take the curriculum. Some will follow it to the letter. Sometimes they'll sort of modify it and sort of create their own dynamic. That group of students actually did Zoom sessions with the small group family. That's how they were able to compile the information. So this is just a small sample of the real world application that we've had from the Keystone's Oral Histories curriculum dealing with York County. Fast forwarding, we're getting ready to launch into a new documentary. It's entitled The History of the Underground Railroad and Abolitionists Throughout South Central Pennsylvania. It's never been done before. Now you have a lot of books and you have information here and there, but to sort of centralize that in a documentary and centralize that with a curriculum for schools in our curriculum, which I'll be showing you a segment of it. These what they call National Common Core Standards for educators, and it also meets Pennsylvania state standards. The premise for me doing this isn't to castigate any particular group. The emphasis for Keystones is to highlight the accomplishments of African Americans in providing basically a lot of the foundational success of the United States. And we not only are just left with African American or the Native American experience, we have a lot of other ethnic experience. So we're open to doing documentaries that will highlight the marginalized communities in the United States in terms of their histories, even in the midst of what they call critical race theory. And I won't get into a long diatribe about that. Our point isn't to put down one group against another. It's just to highlight that there are others that contribute to success. So what's unique about this approach? It's a regional approach. And you could take the macro picture and look at Colin Powell, but there's so much history in our own communities that can be highlighted, that can be lifted up. And again, it's about really coming together and working together because America has a lot of potential to do better, and I'm sure that will over time. But our new documentary coming up, and if you will go to the we'll be highlighting, and you can just use it quick. I don't need to come down. We've already talked about that. I try to personalize my presentations to the organization. But let's go to the first slide, please. This is basically a brief overview about the Keystone Oral Histories curriculum regarding the Underground Railroad here in South Central Pennsylvania. That will include Dauphin County, Cumberland County, Adams County, York County, and Lancaster County. York County, this region, specifically York County, was really a hotbed for a lot of the movement in the Underground Railroad coming up from Maryland and Virginia. It came up because at one time, Adams County, York County were conjoined, go back some years. It's funny, in the Lancaster County and Dauphin County were conjoined, so I guess a lot of infighting. They said, look, we want our own turf, so you go your way and we're already whatever. But it was quite a sojourn coming up through Southern York County, Stewartstown, Felton, all those different places. And then you go to Adams County into Gettysburg. And then eventually they will go up from there to Cumberland County, up to Dauphin County. But then one of the major corridors that came up from south was to swing east towards Lancaster, because you had then that corridor that took you into Philadelphia and then went going north, Philly to New York to Boston, and for some up to Canada. So we wanted to capture our region and highlight the success, and we were able to really partner with some of the leading historians here in each of the counties. So for instance, some of you may know Scott Mingus, you may have heard that name. We're using a lot of his scholarship pertaining to the Underground Railroad. And we're doing that in each of the counties. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. These are the modules within the curriculum. Abolitionists and conductors. Some of the primary abolitionists in the earlier years in the late 1700s were the Quakers. And really the premise for looking at this documentary is to highlight the collaboration, the cooperation of Blacks and whites and how they worked to help the slave peoples. So it wasn't us versus them. And these abolitionists, they could have lost their livelihood, their families. There's not a lot of documentation, although there's some documentation. And that's what makes the Underground Railroad and that process somewhat sketchy for some. Now, some communities, Lancaster County or whatever, they've done a better job of having primary source information. But it's not a whole lot of information because you had to keep a lot of that secret. Because if they found it, you were in a lot of trouble. but the Quakers played a major role, major role. They went through their own, how should I say, self-seeking and in terms of wrestling with the issue of slavery. But eventually, they were one of the primary abolitionist groups that helped. Slavery legislations, you know, the slave acts, you know, from 1780 and 1850. A lot of that legislation, we get into that just to show how this legislation evolved. You got the Quakers and lawbreakers. Again, you don't think of Quakers, they think of them as pacific, but you got some surely Quakers too, you know, when you get a chance. They, I'm not gonna say they're carrying guns and, you know, but they stood their ground. Thaddeus Stevens, there's been a recent resurgence of people's awareness about Thaddeus Stevens. That man did a lot. He lived in Adams County. He lived in York County for a couple of years. And then he finished his career in Lancaster County. But he did so much in the area of the abolitionists, and primarily, if you saw Lincoln in the, you know, being one of the architects for the 13th, 14th, which eventually also led to the 15th Amendment within the Constitution. So we're going to be highlighting Thaddeus Stevens. Pathways and transportation, that can be debatable sometimes, you know, because you have a lot of counties says, well, we know there are underground rail stations here. And it's true, but a lot of times when you talk about history and having primary source, all of them aren't recognized at the same level because they said, well, we don't have any primary source information to say we know that this was an underground railroad. But it's really obvious. So I have to kind of walk a fine line and say, we know this was a certified underground railroad station, but we're going to highlight that. We know that these are certified, but there's oral histories, there's you know, landmarks that show that these people went through these particular corridors. So we're going to be highlighting that. Pathways and transportation. Can you think of the pathways or what type of transportation do you think enslaved people use for their freedom? Can you raise your hand? Walking, that was one. How about what else? Wagons, okay, what else? They start up in around the 1840s. The railway systems, yes. How about another one? Boats, you know, the waterways, you know, going across Wrightsville Bridge over to Columbia. That was you know, waterway transportation. So we're going to look at that, and then underground railroad stations. So we're thinking about just combining the pathways and the stations together. We have one here in York, at least that's verifiable. With William Goodrich. And again, I know you have Wrightsville and some of those areas over there, but I gotta walk a fine line because the historians will be on you quick. Oh, where you get that from? Or whatever. But we'll do what we do. We're having two versions of this documentary. We'll have a short version, a PBS version, which will be 56 minutes and 40 seconds, and we'll have the longer version, which will be like an hour and a half. So I have to be really concise with PBS. They don't give me much latitude as far as time. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. These are some of the component parts of what you'll find in the curriculum, and having curriculum links for the teachers, the big idea, compelling questions, the resources. So when they get the curriculum, they'll have links for resources that they can go right to that will help the classroom experience. Next slide. The big idea. Next. The big idea, black and white conductors and abolitionists work together to help freedom seekers putting the humanity of others before their own safety. So teachers in the classroom, they'll know these terms, big ideas, the essential questions. We'll go to the next, please. Module description gives an overview about what they can expect and what the modules will be highlighting. Next, please. The compelling question. What's the focus? What are we really looking at in terms of the question that we want to unearth in the classroom? Thought-provoking, no right or wrong. No, it's just an opportunity for students to explore on a deeper level. Next. Resources, again, there's a resource section. We can go, you see Scott Mingus up there, you know, in terms of a resource material guide. So we're, as a matter of fact, the designer of this curriculum, she used to be known as Dr. Jamie Kinsley, now she's Dr. Jamie Norpel. So she gets, you always pronounce somebody that's not Norpel, not Norpel. But she's done an outstanding job, and us working together to flesh this out. Next, the lessons, the materials, the LEQ supporting questions, learning objectives, and the C3 or National Common Core and Pennsylvania state standards. Next, please. Next. 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 All right, next slide. That's just a highlight of Thaddeus Stevens that we're going to be highlighting next. And the wrap up. So there's and then you can take that off. So there's so many ways in the classroom, because I think when you look at regional histories, you don't find much in national publishers that are doing much of the histories from a regional perspective. So for me to sometimes, you have this grand idea and you don't realize how much it's going to take to make it happen. But believe me, it's been worth the journey for me. And again, I'm very thankful for all the organizations, foundations that have supported this work. So I don't think I have anything else. I know I have, how am I doing for time? I got 5, okay. I got 4 minutes, okay. Okay, but I'm good. So what I'd like to do, if you have any questions, and again, you can go to the website and see this information. And our release date, we're looking at April or May of 2023. Because the last one was kind of self-contained. People could tell their own stories, but now you have to research this, you have to get the right historians. So this is taking a little bit longer to unearth, but we're going to get there. So we're looking at a release date of April or May of 2023. So I'd like to take questions at this time, please. Don't be shy. Yes, sir.
Well, thank you for sending this out. I'm not aware of it, but I'm unclear. This is currently for elementary, junior high, high school, or you company?
Well, the target group would be middle school through high school. But again, depending on the teacher, if you saw, that classroom was 5th and 6th grade. So depending on the teacher, they know how to modify it in such a way that can be contextual to that student or class group's experience. But it's primarily geared to, I would say middle school through high school. Yes.
Does this get merged with history course or civics or something?
This for most schools will come under American history because it is. So you have American history on the broader scale. But then within that, you have subsections of various elements of American history. So this is a supplement. Now, generally with supplements, you don't get credits. It's a supplemental piece. But again, I could reasonably guarantee if there are any educators in there, they don't have this kind of material that's been researched, fleshed out. Any educators here? Social studies? Okay. I know that from just me navigating with these schools. And so they're very appreciative to have this kind of information. I hope I answered your question. All right, yes, sir.
We have a question from Zoom from Samantha Dorm.
Okay.
Has there been any interest in this type of curriculum outside of the Susquehanna Valley? How can we help spread the word?
Yes, there is interest because right now the curriculum is being peer reviewed. And I know there's some educational institutes that are getting a whiff of this, are finding out about it. And they're wanting to know, well, how could this be adapted for our school districts? Even if you wanted to say, because I won't say this was the only corridor, but this is one of the earliest corridors from enslaved peoples coming up from the South. They eventually went to the west and to the east, but this was one of the major corridors, because if you think about Maryland and how it borders Pennsylvania, this was the quickest way, that straight line. So yes, there are other entities that are interested in their peer reviewing it. We have Thaddeus Stevens College. I met the president. He's ecstatic about this. And so he's made some connections to other, because he's the former Secretary of Education, Pedro Rivera. So he's very interested in this project. And so we're trying to expand our collaborations, because it's one thing to have groups, but I know that for me, the success of Keystone has been its collaboration and willingness to collaborate with other entities. I hope I answered your question, Ms. Dorn. Any other questions in the room? Yes.
What has been the most difficult hurdle in getting the curriculum?
Oh, boy.
You repeat your question.
She wanted to know what's been the biggest obstacle or hurdle in terms of getting this into other schools' hands. Well, again, I just say that some schools are resistant to this. I know that we've had success in the city, and I don't necessarily want to just keep this locked into a city, because the history is broader than just the city per se. So each district has their own autonomy in terms of how they go about designing this. So a lot of times, I think if they're members within the community that see the value of something like this, I think it's incumbent upon them to say, look, talk to their school board, say, look, we're aware of this curriculum and it's been being well received. Would you consider something like this in your school district? So, but I also say some will, some won't, some can, some don't. So it unfortunately may not be for everyone, But I think if you see the tenor and the tone of this, this is not something that's just trying to create conflict that puts another group down to the expense of the other. Did I, hope I answered your question. Another question, I thought I saw a hand in the back somewhere. Okay, don't be shy. Yes, ma'am.
What are the schools that have worked with you so far? It seemed like maybe you had a pilot school that you worked with.
I worked with Lincoln Charter School. I know that the youth built Christmas Addicts Charter School has it. Logos Academy, that's private, so you have charter private. We're trying to work with the York City School District. So sometimes politics, or just the way the systems work, no system is the same, so you know, you have to learn to take different approaches. So right now, that's the core group of schools that have this, that has the curriculum. So we're hopeful that with this documentary is covering 5 different counties, that there will be some exponential growth, and they might want to piggyback and say, we see this military piece, you know, we're interested in this or something that regard. But that's been our approach, and sometimes it's not just quick and easy. You know, it takes time, due diligence, and just people making calls or knocking on doors or asking questions. Anyone else? Oh, yes, yes, sir.
So is cost an issue for the school districts? Are you asking school districts to pay for this curriculum?
Cost can be an issue, but I know that budgets for curriculum and that type of thing, professional development, school districts have a lot of money. But in this case, your county's foundations, can I mention names? Your county foundations have been very generous, so they've underwritten the curriculum for the school district that wrote letters and said they wanted it. So the school district that have it now, it was basically made possible by foundations within your county.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
When the date has been selected for the PPS airing, can that be made known to our club?
Sure, absolutely. It'll be made known, and it'll also be on the website. We'll make that known, that specific date. Now, we've had to change it a couple times because after I really started digging this, I'm not gonna get this done. But I don't want to rush it. I just don't. It's too important. So if it's gonna take more due diligence, then it's gonna take more due diligence. So,
Brian,
yes,
will there not possibly be a premiere also about that?
yes, I was coming to that near, yes. Each of the counties, we're gonna have these screenings. I know we've set aside a screening for the National Civil War Museum. We've talked to Dickinson College. I've presented there. They're open to it. Gettysburg College is open to it because some of their professors are in the documentary. I haven't found a venue yet in York County, and Thaddeus Stevens, they just said absolutely we'll have this here, you know, screening. So we'd love to see if we can nail down a venue opportunity here in York County to show this, because really this is home. This is really ground zero for why Keystones is doing what it's doing. So we hope we can find a venue here in York County. Yes. Thank you, President Miller. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Their education. To talk to like student teachers about this.
We've done, matter of fact, when I was at York, when we did the York County version of this, actually in chapter 8, the York College students actually did the filming for chapter 8. So there has been this interface. We're looking to do the same thing with Thaddeus Stevens, but I know they were talking about possibly using that for the incoming students to give them a better expose about the life of Thaddeus Stevens. So there's just so many possibilities. And again, I shouldn't say this a one man show, but a lot of the interfacing that's going on, I have to do it. So a lot of these ideas, I have to carry them out, but you know, I have to do it as best I can based on the time that I have. But yes, we'd love to be able to interface with colleges or even high schools. But again, matter of fact, we went down to Southern York County, the Southwestern School District, and a couple of school administrators were there, and we made them aware of this shortly after we had finished the curriculum. Seemed to be interest, but again, you know, you can knock on doors, and as some people say, you got to be persistent, you got to keep knocking. I guess my knuckles can only take for so much knocking, you know. But I just have to be judicious with my time. I just do. President Miller's giving me his cue, sonic cue, so it's very good. Okay.
Thank you for that segue on being judicious. That was great. Thank you very, very much, Brian. We appreciate having you here Thanks for not just your presentation, but much more importantly for the work that you've been doing in telling these untold stories in our community. Our community is richer and wiser for you having brought these stories to the fore, both in our educational system and just for our own edification as citizens. In honor of Bryan's time with us today, he has signed the book plate in the book Ties Travels All Aboard. And that book will be donated to the Ferguson Elementary School. Thank you again, Bryan. Thank you. Next week, up to bat, York native and former executive director of the 2026 United Bid Committee, John Christic, will talk about his experience leading the successful joint bid of Canada, Mexico, and the United States to hold the FIFA World Cup in 2026. Who knew? The three country bid was the most extensive sports event bid ever produced, adhering to FIFA's detailed bid requirements. Now president of Playfly Premier Partnerships, say that 10 times fast, John continues to work closely with host cities ahead of the FIFA World Cup in 2026, providing ongoing operational and commercial strategy. Our closing quote today comes from past President Jackie Summers, who says, quote, "Imagine the endless possibilities of a life well lived, to shine a light on fear so it is less dark, to give voice to the voiceless so they may be heard, a future pervaded in hope and in love." Imagine indeed. Thank you, friends. This meeting is adjourned.